What would happen if time suddenly stopped? Time, a word so familiar, yet so mysterious. Every second of our lives is measured and defined by it. We wake up to alarms, we watch the sun rise and set, we see the seasons change, and we measure our entire existence against the ticking of clocks and the turning of calendars. Time feels obvious. It flows forward, never backward, always in one direction. It seems universal and unstoppable, a river that carries us from birth to death without pause. Yet beneath this surface simplicity lies one of the deepest enigmas of science and philosophy. What exactly is time? And what would happen if it suddenly stopped? For much of human history, the answer seemed straightforward. To Isaac Newton and the world shaped by his laws of motion, time was absolute. Newton imagined time as an invisible stage, a universal backdrop upon which every event in the cosmos played out. Whether a star exploded in a distant galaxy or an apple fell from a tree on Earth, both events occurred within the same constant flow of time. 1 second here was the same as 1 second there. Time moved forward at a steady pace, unaffected by anything that happened inside it. Like a river that flows endlessly, it was the same for everyone, everywhere, always. This view fit perfectly with classical physics and made sense of a predictable, mechanical universe. For centuries, humanity trusted this picture of time as solid, objective, and absolute. But in the early 20th century, Albert Einstein changed everything. With his theory of relativity, he revealed that time was not an independent backdrop, but was woven together with space into a four-dimensional fabric called space-time. And in this fabric, time is not fixed. It bends, it stretches, it slows down. It even behaves differently depending on where you are and how fast you are moving. A person standing on Earth and an astronaut traveling close to the speed of light will not agree on the passage of time. To the astronaut, minutes may pass, while back on Earth, years could go by. Even gravity distorts time. Clocks run slightly slower in stronger gravitational fields, meaning that someone standing on the surface of Earth ages infinitesimally slower than someone floating far out in space. These effects are not just theoretical, they are measured every day. GPS satellites orbiting above the planet must account for time dilation caused by both their speed and their distance from Earth's gravity. Without Einstein's corrections, GPS would be useless. This discovery shattered Newton's vision of a universal clock, ticking the same for all. Instead, time became slippery, relative, and dependent on motion and gravity. But once you accept that time can flow at different rates, an even more unsettling question arises. Could it ever come to a complete stop? At first thought, the idea of frozen time might seem almost playful. You may imagine raindrops hanging motionless in midair, birds suspended in the sky, cars halted mid-turn, and people frozen mid-step on busy streets. It is the image of a cosmic pause button, as if reality itself had been stopped like a film projector. We have seen this in science fiction countless times. But the reality, if it were possible, would be far stranger and far more terrifying. If time truly stopped, then all processes in the universe would halt. Light itself would no longer travel. Photons would freeze between their sources and destinations, leaving darkness everywhere. Atoms would no longer vibrate, which means heat would vanish, sound would vanish, and all physical activity would collapse into stillness. Chemical reactions would stop mid-course. Stars would cease to shine, planets would stop their orbits, and most crucially, our brains would stop functioning. Neurons fire because of electrical signals that travel through time. If time were frozen, those signals would never occur. Thought itself would die. Consciousness would blink out. And here lies a deep paradox. If time stopped, we could never be aware of it. The act of awareness requires change, and change requires time. To observe time standing still would itself require time to pass, which is impossible in such a scenario. This means that even if time could stop, no one inside the universe could ever experience it. It would be, from our perspective, equivalent to the end of existence. But then the thought becomes even more haunting. If time is frozen, what would an outside observer see? Is there even such a thing as outside time? We live inside it, bound to its flow. To imagine standing beyond time is like trying to see color beyond the spectrum of light or hear a sound beyond the range of hearing. It stretches not only our physics, but our imagination to the breaking point. Yet this question is not mere fantasy. It cuts into the very foundations of reality itself. Even within our ordinary lives, we sometimes brush against the strange edges of time. People in moments of sudden danger, such as car accidents, often report that everything seemed to slow down. Athletes describe a state of flow where time appears to bend, stretching seconds into what feels like minutes. Those who have had near-death experiences sometimes speak of entire lifetimes flashing before their eyes in an instant. These are not examples of time literally stopping, but they remind us that our perception of time is malleable. The brain itself can alter our experience of duration, hinting that time may be more a construction of consciousness than a solid feature of the universe. And so, the first cracks appear in our everyday assumptions. Time may not be the universal river Newton imagined. It may not even be a thing at all, but instead a way of measuring change, a yardstick created by our minds to give order to motion and events. If so, then asking whether time can stop is like asking whether distance can stop. Without change, without movement, the very concept loses meaning. Yet we cannot shake the image of everything frozen in place, of a universe caught in perfect stillness. The ancient philosophers also wrestled with these questions. Some viewed time as infinite, stretching endlessly forward. Others saw it as cyclical, repeating in eternal loops. And still others argued that time was an illusion, a trick of human perception. The more we examine it, the more slippery it becomes. And so we return to the central, unsettling question. If time did stop, even for the smallest fraction of a second, what would that mean for the universe and for us? That is the mystery at the heart of our exploration. To understand what might happen, we must look deeper into the laws of physics, into the strange world of quantum theory, and into the boundary where science and imagination collide. Only then can we begin to unravel the paradox of a frozen moment in an ever-moving universe. Imagine reality snapping into stillness. The air no longer stirs, the waves freeze mid-crest, and a bird caught mid-flight becomes a lifeless sculpture against the sky. Rain does not fall. Each drop is suspended like crystal beads in the air. The universe, once a dance of endless motion, has become a frozen mural. At first glance, this image feels almost serene, like stepping into a dream where everything waits for you. Yet this fantasy is impossible. To witness requires eyes processing light, and light itself is motion. If time has stopped, then no photon ever reaches the retina. The frozen raindrop would not glisten. The bird would not appear against the sky. There would be no sight at all, no sound, no warmth, no thought. The truth is merciless. If time ceases, existence as we know it ceases too. Every heartbeat halts, every neuron's spark goes dark, every atom is locked in silence. Even the heat within your body disappears, for heat is nothing more than the restless vibration of particles, and particles cannot vibrate without the rhythm of time. Consciousness, that fragile flame sustained by billions of firing synapses, would be extinguished instantly. The universe would not simply be quiet, it would be unreachable, unthinkable, unexperienced. Yet our imagination refuses to accept such void. We love to picture ourselves walking among still objects, touching a raindrop suspended in air, staring into someone's eyes forever unblinking. Movies and stories feed this vision, where a chosen hero can move while the world halts. But physics does not allow this loophole. To move is to change position over time, and when time no longer flows, motion becomes a contradiction. No footsteps can fall, no hand can reach, no eye can blink. The frozen world is not a playground, but a tomb. Silent, inaccessible, absolute. And here lies a strange paradox. If everything is frozen, how could anyone ever know? Awareness itself requires the passing of moments. A brain cannot perceive without electrical currents racing through it, and those currents are impossible when there is no time. From the inside, there would be nothing. It would not even feel like silence, because feeling requires time too. The cessation of time would not be something we could detect or remember. It would erase the very possibility of detection, of memory, of being. But what if there were an outside observer, someone or something existing beyond the laws of our universe, untouched by its time? To them, the scene would be horrifyingly beautiful. They would see galaxies held forever in mid-spin, stars burning yet motionless, their light frozen inside them, never escaping into the void. They would see planets locked in orbit, oceans fixed in waves, living beings transformed into statues of flesh and bone. A kiss frozen before it lands, a tear arrested on a cheek, a laugh caught in a mouth that never finishes its sound. To such a being, the universe would appear as a museum of halted motion, a cosmic gallery where every event is captured but none ever unfolds. This thought invites a deeper question. Is time something woven into the fabric of reality, or is it merely a construct of our minds? A way for consciousness to order change? If the flow of time stopped, would the universe itself vanish, or would it persist as a frozen block of existence, timeless yet still present? Some physicists argue that time is not fundamental but emergent. According to the laws of thermodynamics, what we call time may arise from entropy, the tendency of systems to move from order to disorder. Without change, entropy halts, and with it, the sensation of time. Others argue that time is inseparable from space itself, woven into the fabric of space-time described by Einstein's theory of relativity. In this view, to stop time is to unweave the very threads of reality. Consider relativity. Near a black hole, time already slows dramatically compared to regions far away. To an astronaut circling close to the event horizon, moments tick slower than for observers at a distance. From this perspective, time can stretch, warp, and nearly stop. Could this mean that under certain conditions, time truly halts? Or does it simply become inaccessible to those outside? If the universe as a whole experienced such a collapse, would it resemble the frozen mural we imagine, or something far stranger? Picture an experiment. Imagine a glass of water placed on a table. In normal time, molecules vibrate, collide, and exchange energy. Over minutes, the water grows warm or cool. Over hours, it evaporates. But if time stopped, the molecules would freeze in position, not in temperature, but in absolute stillness. The droplet at the rim of the glass would never fall. The steam above it would never rise. The reflection of light on its surface would never ripple. For eternity, the glass would remain unchanged, a perfect monument to the last instant of time. And yet, this eternity would have no meaning, because without time, there is no forever. There is only the absence of change, the death of becoming. On a larger scale, imagine Earth itself. Clouds pause in the middle of their drift, lightning remains etched across the sky without fading, and volcanoes are caught mid-eruption, their fiery plumes unmoving. Cities are filled with people halted mid-step, mid-conversation, mid-breath. A mother reaching for her child never makes contact. A musician never finishes the note that lingers in the air but never vibrates. A soldier never pulls the trigger. A runner never crosses the finish line. All stories end in suspension, unresolved, unfinished. For humanity, the idea that time might stop is terrifying not only for its physical implications, but for its philosophical ones. What is identity without memory? And what is memory without time? Our sense of self is a narrative, stitched together from moments that follow one another. If time halts, the story halts, and we are erased not by destruction, but by the absence of continuation. It is not death in the usual sense. It is the unraveling of the very fabric that allows anything to be alive or dead at all. Throughout history, myths have hinted at this fear. Ancient cultures spoke of gods who controlled the flow of time, stopping it to punish mortals or to preserve sacred moments. In some stories, time's end is the apocalypse itself, the unraveling of all worlds. In others, it is the secret dream of immortality, a desire to hold on to a perfect moment forever, even if it means never moving again. These myths reflect a truth hidden deep in the human psyche. We long for permanence, yet permanence without time is indistinguishable from non-existence. Science fiction has also wrestled with this idea. In countless tales, heroes find a way to move while the rest of the world stands still. They become gods in a frozen reality, capable of exploring a landscape of statues. But even in these stories, the truth eventually intrudes. They discover the crushing loneliness of being the only one who moves, the unbearable silence of a world without change. In some versions, they realize that they are not moving at all, that their experience is only a dream within a dream, a trick of perception before time finally swallows them too. And yet, one more possibility lingers. What if time never truly stops, but only appears to from certain perspectives? What if the flow of time is relative, stretching thinner and thinner until it feels like nothing moves? In the far future of the universe, as stars burn out and entropy reaches its maximum, change becomes slower and slower until it approaches a standstill. To beings living then, the universe may feel frozen, not because time has ended, but because nothing new remains to happen. It is not a sharp cut, but a long fading. The music of existence playing its final notes until silence settles in. In the end, the question of time's cessation strikes at the core of what it means to exist. Without time, there is no motion, no heat, no light, no thought. Without time, there is no memory, no self, no story. To imagine time stopping is to imagine the erasure of everything we understand as reality. It is the ultimate paradox, a universe frozen forever, yet unexperienced by anyone within it. Unknowable, except perhaps by something outside it. To us, it would not feel like the end of time. It would feel like nothing at all. And still, we wonder. We imagine. We fear. Because deep within us lies a truth we cannot escape. Time is not just the measure of change. It is the stage upon which existence itself performs. If that stage collapses, so too does the play, the actors, and the audience. What remains is silence stretched into eternity, a silence that no one will ever hear. What would it mean for the cosmos itself if time ceased to flow? Not just in our world, not just in our solar system, but everywhere, across galaxies, across the infinite stretches of space? To imagine this is to confront the most unsettling possibility in all of science and philosophy, that reality itself could collapse into stillness, not with a bang, not with fire or destruction, but with silence. The silence of absolute suspension. Look outward into the night sky. Every star you see is not what it is now, but what it once was. Light takes years, sometimes millions of years, to travel across space, carrying the story of those distant suns. When you gaze at Orion's belt or the pale glow of Andromeda, you are not seeing the present, but the past delivered to you at the speed of light. This delay is possible only because time is flowing, because photons cross the void moment by moment. But if time stopped, this cosmic communication would end. Beams of light would hang in mid-flight, their journey never completed. Galaxies would be suspended like lanterns in the dark, their radiance locked within them. The universe would cease to be a story told through light. It would become a sculpture, silent and unreachable. Astrophysicists often describe the universe as a vast stage where forces act, particles collide, and structures evolve. Gravity pulls matter into stars, stars forge elements, and those elements scatter to create planets, life, and consciousness. Every step requires time as the medium through which processes unfold. Without time, stars cannot burn, galaxies cannot spin, planets cannot orbit. Even black holes, those enigmatic engines at the heart of galaxies, would lose their defining power. For a black hole is not simply a place. It is a process, a curve in space-time through which matter falls, light bends, and time slows. If time halts, the black hole ceases to be meaningful. Its hunger becomes meaningless because there is no longer a before and after for it to consume. Consider the cosmic scale of entropy, the arrow of time. Entropy explains why eggs break but never unbreak, why smoke disperses but never gathers, why the universe evolves toward disorder. Without entropy's direction, there would be no past, no future, only a meaningless present. If time froze, entropy itself would be frozen. The arrow of time would no longer point anywhere, and the universe would no longer have a direction. It would be as though the film of existence had stopped mid-frame, never advancing to its conclusion. Some physicists propose that this frozen frame is not just a thought experiment, but a genuine possibility hidden within the structure of reality. In the block universe theory, also known as eternalism, past, present, and future all exist simultaneously. We do not move through time. Instead, every moment exists like pages in a book. We experience them sequentially, but the book itself is already written. In this view, the universe does not flow, it simply is. If this is true, then the cessation of time is not a collapse, but a revelation. Everything is already frozen, and our sense of movement is an illusion created by consciousness. You are not moving through time. You are simply occupying one slice of it. If you could step outside, you would see your entire life stretched out, every moment happening at once, every joy and sorrow carved into the fabric of reality. Quantum mechanics complicates this further. At the smallest scales, particles behave not as solid objects, but as probabilities, clouds of potential that collapse into certainty only when observed. Time plays a strange role here. Some interpretations suggest that quantum processes do not require time as we know it, but instead operate in a timeless state of potentiality. Could it be that at the deepest level, time is not fundamental at all, but a shadow cast by something deeper? If so, then to imagine time stopping may not be the end, but the unveiling of that hidden layer of reality, where existence is not measured in seconds, but in patterns of possibility. Still, for beings like us, bound to the march of seconds, the idea is unbearable. Imagine civilizations across the universe, alien worlds with their own histories, cultures, and dreams, all arrested in an instant. Great cities on faraway planets would be frozen in their prime. A poet mid-sentence on a world a billion years away would never finish his verse. A child looking at a strange alien sky would never finish her breath. Entire galaxies filled with intelligence and wonder would be silenced together. Every story ending not with tragedy, but with incompletion. The great cosmic library of consciousness would not burn. It would simply stop turning its pages. To grasp the horror of this, picture yourself walking through a museum of frozen instants. In one hall, a supernova hangs suspended, its tendrils of fire never expanding. In another, two galaxies caught in collision remain forever locked in embrace, their stars unmoving in the tidal dance. In another chamber, a planet rich with forests and oceans lies still, its winds frozen, its rivers halted mid-flow. Yet you cannot move through this museum because you too are part of the exhibit. You are not the observer, you are one of the statues. Your thoughts, your breath, your heartbeat, each is just another artifact trapped in the stillness. Philosophy has long grappled with the concept of timelessness. For some mystics, to escape time is to reach eternity, a higher state beyond the decay of the physical world. But this eternity is imagined as bliss, as liberation. The reality suggested by physics is far colder. It is not endless joy, nor endless suffering, but the absence of experience altogether. To live forever in a single instant is not to live at all. Without the progression of time, eternity becomes indistinguishable from oblivion. Yet we must ask, is such a frozen end possible? Cosmology offers several models for the fate of the universe. One is the heat death, where the cosmos expands until all energy is evenly spread, leaving no difference to drive change. Time would not stop suddenly, but would slow into irrelevance. Moments would stretch so far apart that, from any perspective, nothing happens anymore. Another possibility is the Big Crunch, where the universe reverses its expansion and collapses inward, perhaps reigniting a new cycle. In such a scenario, time might not stop but reset, like a pendulum swinging back. A third model imagines a Big Rip, where expansion accelerates until even atoms are torn apart. Each of these is catastrophic, yet none is as absolute as the freezing of time. That, perhaps, belongs to the realm of metaphysics more than physics, to the nightmare that lurks behind our equations. But let us entertain one last thought experiment. Imagine you are given a device that can halt time for everyone but you. At first, it seems like a gift. You could walk through a silent world, examine details no one else could see, change objects while no one notices. But soon, the cracks appear. Food does not cook because heat is motion. Light does not travel, so darkness surrounds you. Your body does not function because every cell relies on time to process energy. Even you cannot move because motion requires time. The fantasy collapses, and you realize that to stop time is not to gain freedom, but to erase existence itself. So where does this leave us? Perhaps with a new appreciation for the flow of time, not as a prison, but as the condition that makes everything possible. Without time, there is no life, no thought, no love, no story. Every joy you have ever felt, every memory you cherish, every dream you pursue exists only because time carries you forward. The ticking of the clock, once seen as a reminder of mortality, may instead be the very heartbeat of the universe. Each second is not an enemy stealing your life, but a gift granting it. And yet, the fear remains. The thought that time itself could end still haunts the imagination. It is the ultimate apocalypse. Not fire or ice, but stillness. Not destruction, but the loss of becoming. And in that stillness, there would be no one left to mourn, no one left to remember, no one left to wonder. The curtain falls, not with sound or light, but with the extinguishing of the very stage upon which the play was performed. If the universe is a grand narrative, time is the ink in which it is written. To ask what happens if time stops is to ask what becomes of the story when the ink runs dry, when the pages can no longer be turned. For 3 parts, we have traced the possibility of this stillness, imagining frozen galaxies, halted thoughts, civilizations silenced in mid-sentence. Yet the final question remains, could time truly end, or is it as eternal as the space it inhabits? Physics does not offer a simple answer. On one hand, the equations of general relativity allow time to bend, to stretch, even to approach zero in extreme conditions. Near the singularity of a black hole, time slows nearly to nothing, hinting that the very fabric of temporal flow is fragile. On the other hand, quantum mechanics seems to suggest that processes continue in some form even when classical time breaks down, as though existence finds a way to persist without our familiar clockwork. Between these theories lies uncertainty, and in that uncertainty, we glimpse the possibility that time might not be fundamental at all. If time is not fundamental, then what is it? Some philosophers of science argue that time is an emergent property, rising out of relationships between events rather than existing on its own. In this picture, the universe does not have time, it has change, and from change we abstract the idea of time. If change ceases, then time ceases. But if change is eternal, then time, in some form, is also eternal. Which of these is true may depend on the ultimate fate of the cosmos. Consider again the heat-death scenario. The universe expands until all differences vanish, every star dies, every particle spreads thin, and entropy reaches its maximum. In this bleak future, change grinds to a halt. There are no new patterns, no new energy gradients, nothing to distinguish one moment from another. Time, in any meaningful sense, ends. But this ending is not abrupt, it is gradual, a fading into stillness. Imagine music slowing down until each note stretches longer and longer, until the melody becomes one eternal drone, and finally, silence. That is the heat death, not a sudden stop, but a dissolution of becoming. Other models tell different stories. The Big Crunch predicts a reversal of expansion, a collapse of all matter back into a singular point. Time would not stop but reverse, a cosmic pendulum swinging back toward its origin. In this scenario, time might be cyclical, endlessly looping through expansion and contraction. Life, consciousness, civilizations, perhaps even you, might emerge again in another cycle, not as reincarnation in the mystical sense, but as inevitable consequence of physics repeating itself. Still more radical is the idea of a multiverse where time does not exist at all, only timeless states of potentiality. Our universe, with its flowing seconds and unfolding history, may be just one expression of something deeper, a flicker in an eternal sea where the distinction between past, present, and future is meaningless. To us, this sounds incomprehensible. Yet to minds not bound by our form of consciousness, timelessness might not be emptiness but fullness, a reality where everything simply is, without need for becoming. Here, philosophy must step in. What does it mean for human existence if time is finite? If the clock of the cosmos will one day stop ticking, what value does our brief moment hold? For some, it is a source of despair. All achievements, all love, all art, eventually erased, frozen, forgotten. For others, it is a call to meaning. Precisely because time is finite, every second matters. A kiss, a laugh, a memory with a friend, all are made precious because they will not last forever. If time never ended, if it stretched endlessly without conclusion, perhaps life would lose urgency, and with it, meaning. Mortality gives weight to existence. The possibility of time's end gives weight to the universe itself. Imagine standing on the final day of time. Perhaps you are a lone consciousness in the dying heat of the cosmos, aware of the last flicker of change before the freeze. What thoughts would pass through your mind? Would you cling to memory, knowing it too will vanish? Would you rage against the silence, or accept it as the final embrace of existence? In that moment, every philosophy humanity ever conceived, religion, science, art, would converge on a single truth. Time has been the medium of your life, and now it is gone. But here lies another paradox. If time ends, there is no last day, no final thought. Those words themselves depend on time continuing to its conclusion. If the river dries, there is no final drop of water. The flow simply ceases. Likewise, when time ends, there is no final moment to witness it. The play stops not with a curtain call, but in mid-act, and no audience remains to realize the loss. The universe would not end in tragedy or triumph, but in an absence too deep to name. And yet, even this absence teaches us something. To imagine a timeless universe is to realize how inseparable time is from our sense of self. Without time, there is no growth, no memory, no identity. We are not beings who exist within time. We are beings who are made of time. Our cells, our thoughts, our very awareness are rhythms unfolding moment by moment. To strip away time is to strip away us. This realization makes the ticking of the clock no longer a threat, but a gift. Think of your life not as a line moving toward an end, but as a constellation of moments. Each one is already written in the block universe, already eternal in its own slice of existence. The first breath you took, the first time you loved, the last time you laughed with someone dear, all are still there, preserved in the architecture of space-time. You move through them like a traveler turning pages, but the pages themselves are never destroyed. In this sense, time's end does not erase what was, it only halts the writing of what could have been. Your story remains, even if no new chapters are added. From this perspective, the end of time is not the destruction of meaning, but its crystallization. Every moment that ever was becomes eternal, unchangeable, untouchable. The bird that once flew, the child that once smiled, and the tear that once fell, all locked forever in the fabric of existence. Perhaps this is the truest immortality. Not endless life, but the preservation of every life that ever unfolded, sealed in the timeless vault of reality. And so, we return to the question that haunted us from the beginning. What happens if time stops? The scientific answer is harsh. Motion ceases, energy halts, consciousness is extinguished. The philosophical answer is haunting. Nothing happens because happening requires time. But the human answer may be something else entirely. Perhaps the end of time is not something to fear, but something to reflect upon. A reminder that our moments are fleeting, and precisely because they are fleeting, they are infinite in value. The next time you hear the tick of a clock, imagine it as the heartbeat of the cosmos, the pulse that allows everything you love to exist. The next time you feel a moment slipping away, do not despair. See it as a spark, brief yet brilliant, part of the fire that lights the universe. Time may end someday, for the cosmos or for you, but until it does, every second is a miracle. And if time does stop, then all those miracles remain, suspended forever, untouched by decay. The universe becomes a gallery of eternity, each instant preserved in perfect silence. You may never walk through it, may never see it from the outside, but know this: nothing is ever truly lost. Every heartbeat, every kiss, every star that ever shone, frozen, yes, but also eternal. In the end, the story of time is the story of us. If it stops, we stop. If it flows, we flow. And as long as it continues, even for one more second, we are here, living, breathing, dreaming. So cherish it, because nothing in all the universe is more precious than this fleeting, unstoppable, beautiful thing we call time.